Have my CL55 AMG. I bought this car approximately 7 years ago, and I'm going to close the door. That's what it looks like inside. Actually, it cleans up pretty nicely considering. I bought this car about 7 years ago. I spent a lot of time, money and effort. I actually went drag racing with a customer of mine who I'm going to link to the video down here, who we've got in the workshop today, which is just in there. This car has a 5.4 litre supercharged V8 that Mercedes tweaked. It's basically an M113 compressor, which I'm going to take a look under here. If I can use one-handed, there you go. Right, it's had a few little tweaks and things like that. We've got an additional heat exchanger down here, which you can't see, but you might be able to see through the bumper. There you go. We have a larger crankshaft pulley, which makes significantly more power on this car. Down there, you can see it sort of just there. We've also got a belt wrap kit, because on this car, when you spin the supercharger quicker, this belt has a tendency to slip on this pulley. So there's a bit of a history behind this car. I sold it to a good friend of mine with a blown engine, nothing to do with the tuning. It just had cracked ring lands. What we've done since then is he replaced the engine, and then he lent it to somebody who unfortunately didn't look after it, and it arrived back to him on a recovery lorry with a smashed up front bumper. Those of you with a keen eye will see that the bumper is one colour and the body is another colour. This is what happens when you paint silver cars, unfortunately. So the plan with this car is it came to me, had no brake calipers on it, they're in the boot. We've had the brake calipers refurbished. We've had new two-piece discs made custom for this car, because this car had a brake upgrade from a 65 AMG. So it's got new two-piece front discs. We've done a gearbox rebuild on it already. I've also done a door control module, because the keener eyes of you will notice that there is a mark on the window where the windows were taped up because the windows had gone down and didn't go back up. So on this car, when you close the windows, the windows go up, and then when you open the door, they drop down to allow the door to open, because it's a pillarless design. So the problem you've got here is that obviously water has got in. The interior looks good at first sight, but when you have a look up here, you can start to see a bit of mould. Now, it looks bad. It's Alcantara headliner, so it will be rejuvenatable. That's a new word I made up. We've also got a new subframe that's going to go on. New subframe, we're going to run new brake lines, we're going to run new ABC lines front to back. In the ownership that I had this car, I never had any problems with ABC, but we will touch on ABC as a system, how the whole thing works, etc., what the benefits of the system are. It also allows you to lower and raise the car at your will. So this is actually sitting slightly lower than the factory. I think that's sort of a perfect height for this car. Let's use the sunlight, there you go. Once it's all done, we're going to give it a repaint, and we're basically going to go through the car front to back. So the engine is going to come out, the gearbox is going to come out, the subframe is going to come out, and the whole drivetrain is going to be removed. We're going to take all the shields off the engine bay. We're going to treat all of the underbody rust that we've got starting. It's all surface at the moment, but it needs to be dealt with now. Batteries, little things, little bits of things like these chrome trims, which are £60 from Mercedes. Thanks, Mercedes. Parking sensors don't work properly. Things like that. We're going to do a whole new rad pack. So ABC cooler, air conditioning intercooler. Behind there is the actual intercooler for the supercharger, the factory one. The additional one down there is actually wired in series. We're also going to upgrade the supercharger pump. Then we will put it on a dyno with our partners at Road Rage Performance and see what power it's making 5 years down the line from when I used to take it drag racing. Expecting somewhere around 600 horsepower, maybe 580. It's got 180mm crank pulley, so factory the car would have been making somewhere in the region of well, 493 horsepower, near enough 500 horsepower, with 700 newton meters of torque, which is certainly making more than that now. So yeah, with this is go through all the common problems on this platform. So 215 is a chassis number. Technically it's a C215 because it's a coupe. If it was a convertible, it would be an A215, which they don't do, but if it was a four-door, it'd be a W215, and if it was a long wheelbase, it would be a V215. Just a bit of chassis number information for you. So we're going to go through all the common problems with this car. ABC is a common bugbear on this car. Everyone goes, oh, ABC, it's really bad, it's always broken, blah, blah, blah. It's quite a complex hydraulic suspension system. It's exceptionally good when you drive the car, and people sort of get frustrated with it, but often the frustration is from people who don't understand the system. They take it to a mechanic who may not understand the system, and they throw very expensive parts at it, and there are expensive parts for the ABC system. On this car, the ABC high pressure lines that run between 200 and 300 bar, which is a lot of bar, they run front to back from valve blocks that run in the wheel arch and underneath the rear, and there's some pressure systems and dampers and stuff, but I will go through that in a separate video. They're just made of rust now, unfortunately. So this car's had new brake lines, but the subframe is pretty rusty. The floor under the subframe is pretty rusty. I've just noticed that that's not actually clipped on properly, so that needs to be sort of... just little things like that, basically. It just needs to be gone over, just dealt with one by one. So because I've spent more than the car's worth already since buying it back on bits and bobs, so we're going to make it nice again, because they're not going to make any more of these type of cars any longer. And with a supercharged 500 horsepower engine from the factory, it doesn't drive like anything super turbocharged does. There's no delay, it's instant, it's there, 1500 RPM all the way to red line, until your intake temperatures get too high, but we'll talk about that another time. Other than that, these engines are pretty robust. The only things you've got to be careful with are pushing too much intake temperatures through them by putting really aggressive supercharger pulleys. So now you can get quite small supercharger pulleys. So by making the supercharger pulley smaller, it serves to spin the supercharger faster, which gives you more boost, therefore more power. But you know, if you spin the supercharger faster, you generate more heat. More heat means more likely to detonate the intake charge, and that pre-detonation is no good for the engine. It just destroys it. And on a normal engine, you might get a few bits of warning, but on 113s, they have hypereuretic pistons. They're very, very hard aluminium pistons, and they're like glass, so they don't deal with it. They just shatter, and the piston rings end up holding them together, and you end up causing damage to the bores. So yeah, so we're going to deal with that. Go through everything on this. It's going to be lovely jubbly. So we're still waiting for parts to arrive. We've got most of the lines. Half of them are on back order as always. So once they get back ordered, it actually does have an MOT, this car, so it is drivable. Has a small fuel leak, so we don't drive it. From the fuel pump, the outlet of the fuel pump, the crimpers failed, so we've got a new fuel pump to go on it. I will be doing a big list of things that it needs doing, and then we'll split the video up into various sections. So just do a little walk around on there. It's been outside for a long time, as you can tell, covered in moss, various other bits. Still looks pretty mean from the back though. 65 AMG wheels, correct for this car with the correct offset. Keyless go, which works. Distronic, which works. So despite the look, it's actually pretty functional, this car. So we're going to... The next step on this video will be taking it apart on the ramp, dropping everything off the back. The new subframe is in the workshop, ready to go. So we're going to also go over all the rust treatment and stuff that we're going to do on it to keep it nice. So yeah, watch this space.